My guest for today is Daza, a vlogger, influencer,
Oh my gosh.
podcaster. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, also we have a brand called Jelly Time. It's a sexual wellness brand. It's a brand we started 2 years ago with my sister Isabel. And our goal is to get people to be able to talk about sexual health in a more empowering context. And it's not something shameful. So that's what I'm trying to fight for nowadays. And I'm also a mom and recently married.
Yeah,
Lots of rules, but not as many as Mike.
yeah. So we delve into a lot of topics today. So I hope you take something from this conversation. Thank you.
Comment. Can you comment what's the most insightful thing? We want to know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Hi, Ava. It's good to see you after many years.
11 years. So crazy.
Yeah,
You look the same.
yeah. Kaurin, except I think mas fit na. Ngayon.
Yes, I love you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyway,
Do I call you Mike ba or Michael?
I think Mike is fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mike.
But thank you for doing this on short notice. So
I'm so excited to be a guest on a podcast and
yeah,
not have to be the one to ask questions and make conversation,
because I think you have your own also sexy time podcast. No?
which you should guest in.
Yeah,
Baka naman
maybe.
you'll be quiet lang, wala kang sasabihin
Baka
the whole
ano,
time.
controversial masyado
Oo
ang
nga.
topics.
Si Bonus will be like, ano ba to? Kala ko introvert.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to catch up. I understand you just had a wedding recently.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Church
so
wedding.
much. We finally had it after 4 years. Like yourself, I was supposed to get married in 2020. And then, it was like the dream wedding I wanted to have. And then
COVID.
1 month before COVID happens. And when that happened, I'm sure you remember, parang I didn't think that it would spread globally that fast. Everything we reserved, we had to cancel. So we lost lots of money in the tickets. That was our saddest part. But at least now, our baby got to join us.
So initially you had a civil wedding.
Yeah.
Then
But
this
like,
was a church wedding in Italy.
But like, I don't know about you. I didn't know a civil wedding was a thing. So I was actually planning the whole time for the church. It was just Paul, who was just telling me, kailangan na may civil. I'm like, what's that? What's civil ba? So I said, okay, let's plan it. We had it with the mayor of Mandaluyong. And then after, there was a lunch. And it was all my husband's. I didn't know anyone there. Because I didn't invite them because I didn't know a civil wedding was a thing. Tapos yun nga, hindi nangyari yung actual wedding. So, but okay na rin. In
So,
time, it happened.
So how was it, the whole wedding?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you've seen anything online, but everything was really, really like amazing. Perfect. We did it really intimate. The hardest part of planning a wedding like that is the guest list. Like, how do you cut down from an initial wedding? We invited like 140 people. We only wanted to do 60 people now. And it's like, how do you tell someone na parang, ay, sorry, you're not na invited? Diba? How are you gonna tell someone?
Yeah.
You tell me. What would you do?
I don't know.
Di mo na lang
It's hard.
sasabihin, diba? I know, so
Subtle na lang, tahimik na.
nakita na lang nila yung photo na, nagka-wedding, hindi ako na-invite. No, but what we did is cutting down that guest list. Everything else went really well, except my sister being crazy. I don't know why I didn't think about this. Like, of course, she wanted to get involved with a lot of like the choices, the band, all those things. And I'm like, ang kulit mo. She would ask me pa like, send me photos of what you confirm for the bands, all of that. Then last minute, so she gave a speech and I kept bugging her like, make sure you prepare a speech because she does really good speeches. And the other weddings we've gone to, like I really enjoy her speeches. And she was the one who told me like, you better make sure you have this wedding. And I was like, I just had a baby. We just built a house. I don't know if we have the funds. She was like, you're gonna find it. Just do it. So I said, I'm only gonna do it if you give us a good speech. True enough, she gives her speech. It's just like 40-minute long speech. But it was really good na hindi ko na notice that it was 40 minutes. And like towards the end of the speech, she's like, okay, can we raise our glasses to the bride and the groom? And then in the back, I noticed like there are two waiters. One waiter like was walking with a tray and then he tripped. Parang the other waiter tripped him. So parang he looked back and he was like so pissed. He came back and then picked up a glass of water and threw it on the other waiter. So I was like, oh my God, we were all carrying our glasses to do the toast, right? And then all of a sudden they go into this rumble. I'm like, oh my god! They started getting into a huge fight.
I think I saw
You
clips
saw a
of that
clip?
online. So that
In
was orchestrated.
Yeah, the whole time I was thinking like, I'm gonna ask for a refund from this place. I was like, so like that's insane. And then so I go up to one of the waiters who fell on the floor, who was getting beat up. He had like blood, real blood going down. I guess because he was bald, he hit yung gravel on the floor. There's real blood. Eh, ako naman, syempre, I don't want that to be happening. So I was like trying to help him. I had a doctor friend there who was like, I called me, I said, look at this wound, look at this wound. And then in the middle of all of that, they start singing Bella Ciao, like Italian song. And I'm like, are you joking me? Are you joking?
Whose
And my
idea
sister,
was that? It was your
of
sister.
course, the only
Galing.
weird person in my family. She's like, I just wanted to wake you guys all up. I'm like, whoever thinks of something like that?
Mm.
And then, but it was, in fairness, it was like very memorable.
Mm.
But she had already done that. Why I'm like racking myself, why I didn't know that it was staged. Was my sister did this not twice in two other birthdays that she'd had. Um, sorry, I'm just making kwento. But one of her birthdays, we were all having dinner at a restaurant, and she closed down the restaurant for all her friends, and she introduced like this girl and this guy, and she was like, "These are my friends from the school that I'm teaching at. Sit down with them." So they're talking. Then throughout the dinner, you see the two like ano ba like kind of talking heated, and then they move to another table. The end of the dinner, the girl says like, "I told you to get off your phone. All you keep doing is keep texting." And then the guy stands up. He's like, "But honey," and she's like, "No." She throws also water in his face, and everyone's like in the dinner, and they walk out, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Belle's colleagues, they're so dramatic." And then like 15 minutes later, she walks and she's like, "Just kidding, guys. These are actors." I'm like, iba talaga trip mo, no?
So
Diba?
all your guests fell for that.
Yeah, oh, my tita pa nga tried to stop the fight. Muntik na siya masuntok eh.
Anyway, I understand you have a very close relationship with your sister, no?
Yeah, well, she she's 3 years older than me, but she acts a lot older. I'm pretty close to her because, well, I guess we grew up together like very closely, but we also weren't that close at one point because she hated my ex-boyfriend. So it's like the usual. I'm not sure if you're like that with your sibling. Are you close? You have siblings, right?
Yeah, I have one brother, but medyo
Far,
far ang
far
gap,
in age
like
gap.
6.5 year gap.
That's a lot.
So there's more
Just
of
one
a,
brother.
yeah,
So
dalawa lang kami. So may mutual respect. So we don't get into
in each other's place. Can you
those
tell my sister that
squabbles.
naman? Because my sister, lahat, down to what food I'm eating, she wants to know.
Minsan she gets intrusive.
Yeah, but that's also what I love about her because she's so pakialamera about everything. Same like my mom. I think it's like also the nature of girls, I guess. Whereas
Yeah.
guys are like, do your own thing.
Yeah, but I think you need to strike that balance where they don't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
in
It's
the
like
way too much.
boundaries.
Bro, it's also healthy because they also care for you in a way.
I'm
So,
gonna send them this clip of this podcast para alam nila, tama na yan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand you also have a podcast which you started during the pandemic. So I think
Yeah.
same tayo.
I know.
Because of COVID, somehow it opened doors for us.
Yeah.
So
What made you start your podcast?
because of the pandemic, I saw like humanity is so messed up na.
Yeah.
Then people are dying. So it led me to question like what's it all for? And
Oh
I
my
wanted to hear
gosh.
perspectives from different
Other
people
people.
na kung ano what their take on life is
Yeah.
and
Do you
perspectives lang nila.
do you ever interview someone who you don't agree with, and how would you like tell them like, I don't agree with that?
Yeah, I just voice out kasi
What you
may
say?
healthy discourse naman.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about that because as a person, I'm a very like, I don't like arguments. I'm like a people pleaser type of thing. Like I don't like people feeling uncomfortable. Whereas my sister's like she'll do her own thing. So like sometimes when I don't agree with a guest on our podcast, I'm like, how do I tell them like, no, that's not how I feel. I have a hard time saying that. So
But
it's
I
hard
think
to be a
it's good.
solo host. It's so hard. So I commend you.
Bro, it's good to have those disagreements because that's where you
The
can-
content
that's
comes
where
in.
you come out or
Yeah.
that's where you're known or what your stances are.
Yeah.
Because if you
That's-
just nod along, you
Ako-
don't reveal yourself totally.
I'm learning nga how to do
Or
that.
parang, as you say, people pleaser. So you're not you.
Yeah.
So you're not authentic.
You know what? Ouch. No, no, no. You know what? It's more like I feel bad if someone feels bad. But when it comes to like disagreeing with an opinion, I can say it like, oh, I don't necessarily agree with that, but what do you think about this? So
Yeah,
it
there
is,
are,
it is hard to do a podcast. Well, one with my sister who we have very like opposing opinions for some
but
things.
co-host kayo.
But thank God I have a co-host. Kasi when sometimes when you have nothing else to say, it's like she'll pick up and she'll know. What
Pero
about
what if
you?
kayo yung nag-argue na kayo yung hosts, pero you're the
Oh,
one
we have
splashing?
a lot. Because like my sister would tell me like, you know what? You always say like. Why don't you stop saying like? And then while we're interviewing someone else, say like. She's like na naman. On the podcast with a guest, I'm like, I'm gonna kill you. Ah. And syempre it throws me off track. And she's just her usual stuff. So off cam, I'll be like, can you stop telling me
Mm.
off our usual things? But then when we have a podcast where it's just me and her, we do get into arguments.
But,
Chela. What
but
about you? You have to think of like questions after.
Actually, I just have the outline in my head or naka-bullet points lang. But I don't really have set questions. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the showbiz style like the boy
Boy
the
Abunda.
approach.
Fast talk.
This is more of parang sa bahay lang
Yeah.
yung vibe,
Yeah.
candid.
Chela. Nice
Yeah,
your house. I love it. Thank
But yeah,
you.
very nice setup. We can talk about something deeper given itong background.
Parang
So,
di pwede superficial yung sa ganitong setup, right?
Prayer podcast is about my themes siya, 'di ba? Sexy time podcast. So it's mainly about sex and
Yeah.
what yung mga taboo. So it's what people don't normally open up
Talk
about.
about, right? I know. Actually, I was
So what led you to
start that.
it?
So so it kind of revolves around the whole sexual wellness realm. In the pandemic, my background is really in commercial real estate. I've been working in a company called KMC for like 8 years. But during the pandemic, real estate was down, especially commercial real estate, because no one's leaving their house. And I was thinking, like, how am I gonna make money? I want to do something I like to do. And then I was at a dinner. It was just me, my sister, and my cousin Martine. And I was saying, I've always wanted to start like a sexual wellness brand. Because I was saying like amongst my friends, I'm always that friend who's like, have you tried this like lubricant? Have you tried this? And all of them are like, oh my God, like, syempre, coming from an all girls school, they're like, you're so crazy. But I also think it's that I grew up with a family of like my mom, who's also very frank, a lot of girl cousins. I'm quite open to those things. So when I talk to my friends about those things, they're like, oh my God, that's so crazy. Anyway, so I said, you know what? I really want to start a brand that people can relate to. And I also noticed like when you talk about sex, people always want to talk about it, but they're shy, but they'll message me privately about it. So I knew there was something there. Well, what happened was I gave my sister like this lubricant to try, and she was like, "I don't want to try that. That's weird." Like
This is jelly time,
this is
right?
Jelly Time.
Yeah.
This is the story of how
I
Jelly
I
Time
read
happened.
about it also.
Oh, really?
That
So it
you're the
connects to
founder.
how we started the podcast because when we decided to start Jelly Time, we didn't know how to market a brand like that in the Philippines because how can you? For one, on Facebook, as soon as they detect certain like things that violate community guidelines, they take down the ads. So then we were like, how do we talk about something that can't be talked about? And right when that was happening, Spotify reached out to my sister. They were saying like, "Hi Isabel, do you want to start a podcast? I think you'd be perfect." But at that time, podcasts weren't a thing. So you're actually quite ahead of your time because podcasts really just started to bloom like
I think
in the past
lately lang,
year.
especially
Yeah,
pandemic, di ba?
exactly. So this was early in the pandemic. This was like 2020, end of 2020, start of 2021. And she was like, I don't know what will people be interested to listen to. And she was like, you know what? We're gonna start Jelly Time. Why don't we use this podcast as a platform to gauge people's interest in sexual wellness? And we were like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, we're gonna do a podcast about sexual wellness. Like, what if people shun us for it? And then, so it was supposed to just be my sister. And she was like, it's not fun kapag ako lang. Kasi I'm more like, I'm more open to those things. My sister's a bit more reserved. So she's like, please come on. And I was like, I'll do for a few, but I don't want to do any, especially because back then there was no camera pa. So I was like, okay lang, voice lang naman. So we did our first episode and our first guess who?
Sin.
Our mom. So our first guest.
And she was open to
too
talk about
open
that.
nga. The podcast did so good that first episode.
Really? But she comes from an older generation.
I
di
know,
ba?
it's weird.
Supposedly, but she's known naman for
I
her
know.
frankness. Di ba?
I know. her generation is like the boomer generation. That's the generation I struggle with in terms of communicating about the brand. At least, for example, someone who works with us in Jellytime had to quit because her mom found out she's working for a sexual wellness company. She was like, that goes against our values. And of course, I just have to understand, like, you have to respect that. But at the same time, our approach to the way the boomers talk about like sexual, like things like that should be banned is like, no, these things happen. Our country is so overpopulated, and the reason why is because people don't know about these things because no one wants to talk about it. So like, if we can be the voice for people in a way that's relatable, then we could do so much for our country. Like, did you know, one of the, like, something we learned was one of the biggest things that can help alleviate poverty in a country like ours is for people to be educated, not to be educated just to space out their pregnancies. Meaning, we don't even have to tell them don't have sex. It's like, you can have your pregnancy this year and wait 3 years before you have your next.
Yeah.
And that can help
Planning,
alleviate
no?
poverty.
Proper
Yeah,
planning.
family planning. But
'Cause-
people don't know that.
Because of poverty, they just keep making babies
Yun
without
nga, wala silang
any...
ginagawa. No, sige, let's do it na. Wala silang...
Yeah.
And it's not
Walang
also their
control.
fault that they don't have access to that education. Kaya sabi, my sister and I were saying, the superficial, how it looks from the outside is like, yeah, we're trying to sell lube toys, but there's so much more to what we're trying to do. We want people to be able to talk about sex, like sexual health, not just the act of sex, openly, freely, where they're not like ashamed to ask, like, is it this how to properly wear a condom? So our ultimate goal is to get a proper sex ed curriculum really embedded into the Philippine educational system. And if we do that, we're doing our job well.
But going back to Jellytime, anong
Yeah.
products nyo? Like lube?
Yeah,
you
so-
also have toys? Or
Yeah. So we
yun
started
yung
with
mga
the lube.
dildo, ganyan? Mga,
Bakit may hand gesture pa? Kala ko, just kidding.
mga vibrator, ganyan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what's
well-
your strongest selling product?
well, our bubble, which I'm gonna send you on our lubricant. I mean, you don't have to use it. You could just like see the quality. But basically, why we started with the lubricant was because lubricants aren't just really for like sexual pleasure. There's so many other uses for lubricant. But one of the things that was really shocking to me was 80% of women experience pain during sex.
Kasi
And-
kulang ng lubrication.
Because kulang ng lubrication. And parang it's so uncomfortable for people to talk about that. They never say na parang, oh, it's painful. They'd rather just bear that pain. And we're like, no, that's not actually what needs, like, you
Dapat
can use
smooth.
lubricant. Yeah, lubricant to help make the whole experience pleasurable. So why we started with lube was when I gave my sister lubricant, she was like, why do I need that? No one knows that you don't have to be menopausal to use lubricant.
Yeah.
You can actually
There's a
be 20-year-old.
perception, diba, na it's just for the older people
Just
na
for I thought that,
who don't
admittedly,
get wet
who don't get wet enough, right?
anymore.
Yeah. But actually, when you're our age, if you start taking a birth control pill, it changes your hormones, which also causes vaginal dryness. I know the topics, it sounds so crazy, but it's so important to know. Because sometimes guys don't even want their wives to use lubricant because they're like, why am I not doing it well enough? Parang it's an ego thing for guys. And it's like, no, it has nothing to do with you.
Parang matamaan ang ego, no?
Exactly. But it has
Na,
nothing
hindi
to
ka
do
na
with
turn
that.
on sa
Yeah,
akin,
but
ganyan.
like, you can be, as a woman, you can be super turned on and not wet at all because it's a hormonal thing. Whereas with guys, the moment a girl touches you palang, diba, you can get erection right away. Because
But there are issues with ED as well.
yeah.
So
I
it's
mean,
hard
ED
to
is
get it up for some.
the hardest. I think it's the most common, what's that? A common sexual health problem for
Yeah.
guys. But
It's
no one wants to talk about it.
ED or I think premature
Ejaculation.
Yeah, yung mga usual.
I'm so happy you're aware of these things. I'm glad you're spreading this type of information because it's so uncomfortable to talk about. Sometimes when we're at a dinner and I talk about it, people are like, but like at the end, everyone walks home knowing na parang, oh wait, it's common pala to not be able to get aroused for a man right away. And it's not just na I didn't get an erection. It's so much more than that. Sometimes it's a health problem, like
Sometimes
your heart,
there's
it's a
with
mental.
ED, there's a psychological
Exactly.
component with that.
And then you don't realize that there's so much more pala you're dealing with. It's whether it's stress from work or a heart
I
problem.
think different factors.
Exactly.
Minsan diabetes, diba? So it's hard
Yeah.
to get it up.
One of the things I learned from our guests was like, one of a telltale sign that you have to check on your heart, or there's might be a clogged artery, is if you do not get full erections.
Yeah, that can
So
be a
that's a
sign.
reason to go check. So if you're for your listeners, baka ma-shock sila.
Yeah. Di,
But
okay lang, anything under the
anything
sun.
under the sun, sabi ni Mike. So okay lang.
But
But
I
yeah.
think with ED, going back to that,
Yeah.
I think porn also plays a role. I think,
What's your take on that?
I think because if you keep watching porn regularly, parang
It changes your
parang maging
cues.
numb ka na. So with actual
Parang
sex,
it's not
baka
as
you don't get the
exciting.
hype na, because your
Oh my
brain
God.
is used to that pleasure point na.
Yeah, na parang visual, and
Yeah.
it's so, and
So
even with
you
porn,
don't
it's
get
so
it up na.
intense.
Yeah, you see the
Ooh.
visuals sa porn, di ba? Yung
Yeah.
the butt,
It's like,
it's very
so
visual.
and it's so like hypersexual, but when you're actually in the act, it's not like that.
Yeah, so it's
My
like
God, that's a super
it's
valid
not
point.
it's not as hype na ba in your brain, so it's
Yeah.
harder to be stimulated.
But so like this is a topic I was actually talking to my husband about. Like, is it common for you when, for example, when you have a partner and you've been together for a while, is it common or is it normal to be thinking of another like image? And is that cheating? What's your opinion?
That's hard because that would be like thought crime. Parang
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
you can't control what you think about.
So like
Maybe but some sensitive, diba?
Yeah.
Like if you bring it up, syempre magtampo. Oh, you imagine.
What if your wife was thinking of someone else? Would you be okay with that?
Walang choice. I mean, I can't do anything about it.
Ako
But
na, yeah.
maybe
It's so
depends how
hard.
one reacts. Some can be cool, some can be triggered.
Yeah.
And now I think maraming easily triggered. So
Yun nga
depends na
eh.
sa tao. Depends how you know your partner also.
Your maturity as well to accept
Maturity
na
level
these
also.
things happen. To be honest, I'm still getting there. It's not comfortable for me to like think that.
But you can't control your
but you
thoughts.
can't control it, and that's the thing. It's like, do you want to control something that parang he'll lie to you? Then in the end, it's so difficult. That's why the whole realm of sexual health and pleasure is so diverse. Whether it's yun nga, your actual health so that you can perform properly, your mental health so that you can perform properly. It's all a part of like your overall health. Apparently, the World Health Organization now, when they talk about wellness, you can do mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, but it's also included sexual. So that's why it's so important to address these things.
But if I ask you, since you and your sister, you're both married na, your husbands or partners don't have an issue with
God, they do.
talking about sex, syempre, it will be reference to them.
Yeah.
Or
That's a
baka
good
yung
question,
mga
actually.
past experiences niyo, baka they'll be triggered hearing about your
I know.
exes.
You know what? That's so funny
So
because
that's what I've been wondering about also.
Yeah. It's actually when my sister asked me to join the podcast, like our opening spiel about the podcast is what's your biggest worry? My biggest worry was my mother-in-law listening to the podcast. That was my biggest worry. But we have an understanding between me and my husband, and I'm sure my sister has with her husband as well. Like, we never talk about anything personal in a sense like parang I don't really refer to him as much. Like anything that's too
Generic
much.
lang.
Yeah, I think generic is
approach.
fine. Or I don't have anything. I never describe anything so visual. But thankfully, he's been like accepting. He's
Cool.
actually cool about it. In fact, I get into his car. One trivia is I never re-listen to an episode because I get nervous hearing my voice. So when I go to his car, he's listening to it, and I'm like, oh my god, he's listening to it. I get nervous, but he always tells me like, that's really good insight you can share with people. So he's been constructive so far.
How many episodes have you shot?
Oh my gosh, we're almost close to 100.
100
And
episodes.
that's insane. We have like, I think 8 seasons now.
How do you pick your guests? And how many episodes in a season?
I think we have like 10 to 12 episodes in a season. And we work with a producer. Her name's Bea. She's a good friend of mine. And we asked her to come do the podcast because she herself has a podcast called Thirsty and 30. Sorry, my bad. But I like the way she did it. And I love that she's passionate about topics like this because she helps us research people that have like good value, have something interesting to say. Like, we've gone through different types of guests, like a urologist who tells us about the health of the penis and the scrotum. We've gone through a couple, local couple. One is a foreigner, one's a Filipina, who talks about the underground swinger scene, which was a really good episode for us. A lot of people connected, like different swingers apparently in the Philippines. We've also had, of course, Vicky Bello, who's also given us really, really good insight. We had a really good episode recently with Tessa Prieto, who told us about, like, you know, she's been married for 40 years and all of a sudden her husband was like, I'm not in it anymore, and just picks up and leave. And it's just fresh perspectives for different people, exactly like you. Just seeing other people's like own experience and how other people could relate. And thankfully, when we launched our first season, we got tons of emails of people like, oh my God, I can finally ask someone. And they open up to us about like the most detailed experience of like their sex life. And they're like, I don't know who to ask. And so I'm so thankful that we have you guys to ask. Yeah. I forgot what the question was, but that's how, oh no, that's how we chose our guests. Like through me, my sister, and our producer. We really research on who could be good people to have.
Any future plans on the podcast? Like, do you wanna
Yeah.
diversify it, or
You know what? My sister and I are still, like, we still have so many people we want to interview. So we're just kind of keeping it at this. Like, one of the struggles is when we launched the podcast, we were consistently part of the top charts in the Philippines for so long. Maybe like couple of, like a month or 2 months or 3 months. But when you do a podcast that's so niche, you have specific loyal listeners that come for podcasts. Whereas, and so I'm really happy that you're doing everything under the sun, because
yeah, mine is broader,
yeah.
covering
Yeah.
all
It's
types of
you
people.
tackle so many different things. So you have a more, you have a wider audience that would be interested. Whereas us, it's very general. So parang we have to accept that we're giving up that wider audience for a bigger purpose. And this, in our case, it's the sexual health.
Yeah, mas
Because
specific sa inyo. There's a theme.
exactly, because you do have people who drop out because they're like, okay, this is too much about sex health. I'm not into it. But what we're doing is we're opening our topics to maybe dumb down on the sex and about more on relationships, personal health, personal wellness, but still encompassing sexual health and education at the end of the day. We always ask our guests, what was your sex education like? We always wrap up our episodes like
Yeah.
that.
I think you can also delve into, as you say, relationships or human behavior,
Yeah, I love
or
it.
even marriages now. Like,
Oh my God.
are you for like divorce? Like now, diba, it's being
I
passed.
know. You know what? I'm
So,
gonna share with you
are
this.
there like deal breakers for you, or is it
I
something you
I I
fight for?
I think that's like the next thing that I want to be talking about in our podcast, because I was listening, and I shared this quickly in the podcast, but I was listening to a podcast by Freak. I was just talking about him over the weekend. I forgot the host, but he's a famous host, not Joe Rogan, my fave. Um, there was basically he invited this very high profile divorce attorney in New York who handles like all sorts of divorce cases, but like from the filthy ultra rich to like regular people who can afford divorce lawyers. And his podcast is about his take on why marriages work versus why marriages don't work, because he has a really unique perspective when he comes into a client, like comes across a client. By the time he meets the client, they already hate each other. The husband and wife despise each other. They want to take what they can get. So for him, he only sees why they hate each other, and then he hears where he has to interview them about like, when you started loving each other in the beginning, how was that like? And then he hears that perspective, and so he takes everything he's learned from all these couples, from couples who have so much money, which is also really interesting because you think when you have all the money, you'll be happy, right? When in
Mm,
fact, it actually adds another layer of problems
yeah.
to your marriage. And then he gives you all the tips he's taken from these to recognize when a marriage is in a rocky stage, or if there's still something to fight for. But it's a really good one. I'm going to text it to you so you can share it with your
Yeah.
listeners who are interested. It was really, really eye opening for me and my husband. The whole time I was hitting him like, oh my God, we have to do that. We have to do that.
But what are your thoughts on marriage?
My thoughts on marriage.
Personally, yeah.
Yeah.
Your outlooks.
I mean,
I,
as
I
a
imagine you must be hopeful since you just
as
got
a
one.
newlywed,
So of
I mean, I
course,
think it's like a big part of me was growing up like you're always taught that you need to be married, all of that. But as I as I mature, I guess, I realize like a marriage is really, and they always say this in like mass, it's like it's really a decision because now I'm only been married officially with the church like less than 2 weeks, but I've been civilly married for 4 years, and already there's so many things we butt heads about. Na parang sometimes I'm like I can't believe like that's how you'd approach a situation. So a lot of times it's very easy to be like I want to like I could leave you easily. Like that thought admittedly goes to my head when I'm really angry, but like they always say it's a choice. But I do believe there are a few things that I don't believe in. I don't believe in getting married because of your children. Like if you get a woman pregnant, I don't think that you
Yeah,
should get married because of that.
automatic na, di
Yeah.
ba?
I actually am
That's the mindset.
that's really like parents, kahit kailan na kayo magpapakasal, like I'm really actually vocal that I with my friends like who've gotten pregnant and have I'm like don't get married because of
Yeah,
that.
it's
And
like you're settling lang. Because
yeah,
may
yeah, yeah,
anak, so
exactly.
automatic marriage.
Yeah. It's like actually the recipe for like disaster, but it works for some. And second, I don't believe in staying together for your children. Like as a product, like me and my sister and my brother, our parents divorced or got an annulment when I was 6 years old, and I couldn't have been any happier because seeing your parents. I also grew up with a family that would always fight, like a cousin of mine, like could always fight. Their parents would always fight, and you see it. It's so toxic for the children to see. So
Yeah.
I'd rather they live separately and co-parent than
So,
parent and let their children be exposed to all that fighting negativity.
yeah, I agree. Sometimes it is healthier to
'Di ba?
part ways.
Yeah.
In the
Amicably.
long run,
Yeah,
it's
amicably.
better.
What's your take on that?
With
On marriage? Like what's your non like parang like what I just said, like I don't agree with this. What's something that you have?
Well, I have mixed feelings because idealistic ako na
Yeah,
tao.
I
Like
get you.
I hope for the best, but of course, if I'm also practical na when things aren't working out, na
But
of
at
course,
what point do you say na parang this is enough?
I think there are deal breakers
There are
talaga.
deal
When
breakers.
it's really toxic, when you're pulling each other down, na,
Walang
when
respect,
it's,
diba?
yeah, respect, when the other is detrimental to your personal growth,
Yeah,
then there
that's
are
a good point.
instances, but you need to discern because it varies.
Yeah.
Someone can't just give advice if they don't know the full picture. It's you personally
Who needs to want it?
who would know on what
Do you
decision
believe
to
in
take.
couples therapy?
I think it helps, but there's an element to it that's very clinical,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
masyadong step by step.
yeah.
That
Structured.
it's like a formula you're just subscribing to, which
Yeah,
doesn't work because as human beings we're very complex and
yeah.
diversified.
With it is hard. Actually, I was telling my husband I want to do couples therapy while we don't have any problem, just to see how that would
You
work.
can
Diba?
try it out, but I
Yeah,
think with
he's like, we don't need an added expense. I'm like, we need couples therapy for this. Yung ano, expense versus savings discussion.
yeah,
That's a normal thing in your marriage. Are you both the type to like manage your finances?
I
Um,
prefer separate
separate. Okay,
finances.
ako rin.
But of course, if the other needs a help, of course, I'd
Yeah.
be there to support. Pero ayoko yung magulo
Mag-join?
or feeling ng isa entitled siya to
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
this just because
We're
married.
married. That's
Yeah.
true. Actually, what I was telling with my husband, why I prefer separate is because I don't want my husband bugging me about what I'm buying.
Mm-mm.
Because like, he's super opposite of me. He likes to like save everything. Whereas me, like I like to spend on food and memories, like travel, stuff like that.
But
Yeah.
if I ask you, my deal breakers ba for you in marriage? Like, would you forgive
Cheating.
cheating?
I do, you know what?
And what counts as cheating for you? The actual sexual
Actual
act
sex.
or
You know
yung
what?
text na may emotional whatever?
I know. I will. If you ask, so it's so weird because me before I'm like, cheating is a definitely no for me. But I did have an ex boyfriend who cheated on me, and I still got back with him. But I think it's also like now with the way I perceive my husband and the way I respect him, feel like if cheating what did happen, it would just break all my everything I know, and I don't know if I could ever get back there. So I do think cheating for me is a big deal breaker. But one thing my mom always tells me, and I don't know if I'm supposed to like really like tanggapin ko ng sinasabi niya just because she's older. She says na parang, you know, as you get older, loyal or being faithful doesn't become the tell all, like isn't anymore the number one priority in a couple for couples. She's saying like when you're older, sometimes it's that companionship that you're just looking for. And sometimes it's like, your husband's done it in the past, but you're able to look past it. I'm not there, but she's told me that. And she's told me and my sister that a couple of times. And I've heard it from other titas as well. So I'm like, I don't know how to feel about that. Because parang, I, do, I feel sometimes you have to just accept it when you know your husband's capable. Because you'll always know at the back of your head with the way you're like, at least with me, I always knew with my ex, like he was capable. With my husband now, I almost feel he's incapable that if it does happen, that would crush me. So right now, a non-negotiable would be cheating. A non-negotiable
Cheating as in the
a physical act,
physical.
and if I saw him texting
What if walang
provocative,
physical pero may mga
emotional, like for girls,
I love you or I'm
yeah,
lusting
that
over you.
that for me is worse. Like
Worse.
if I found out he cheated with a prostitute, I would definitely be
Kasi walang
devastated.
emotional attachment.
Yeah, I would be devastated. But and Luch, if you're listening to this podcast, it doesn't mean you have a reason to do it. But I feel I would be able to get over it quicker than if I saw him saying "I love you" to another woman. 100%.
Mm.
You, from a guy's perspective, if you're with your wife, would you
I
be
think
able to forgive her if she
I think it's hard to discern because marriage, diba, talks about unconditional love. So you're
yeah
accepting the person fully,
fully
the flaws, everything. But then as human beings, we also have
so hard?
barriers or we have limits. So it's really discerning if totoo ba na the person is sorry
What's the
or
context
if
of it,
it's
Rin?
acceptable, ganun.
Because me, I had an encounter when I was engaged. I went on a company trip because we have an incentive for the people who reach their target. Blah, blah. It's just our company, and I got drunk, and a guy kissed me, and I called Luch right
So
away.
kiss lang yun. Or,
Yeah, it was just a kiss, and my workmates were all there. Kiss lang. But still, even with a kiss, syempre, I was engaged, excited for my wedding. Of course, I did provocative. Like probably, I was dancing in the DJ booth. He was like beside the DJ, like that, and I called my husband, Luch, right away, and I was like, I need to tell you something. This guy kissed me
so you
here.
admitted right
I
away.
couldn't hold it in. I'm also that type of person. Like I need to. I feel like I'm such a. If I don't say it, although my workmates were like, "Are you sure you want to say it? You're drunk." I'm like, "No, I need to tell him." But he was so. I mean, he was mature enough to be like, "Can I process this first?" And but he forgave me naman in the end. So I guess it's situational also, like you
Yeah, I
said.
think the answer is it depends.
It de-
It depends.
My God,
Depends.
suspense.
It
Okay, tama.
depends on the
Yeah.
factors,
Yeah,
the
I guess.
dynamics. It's okay. Pero ano pang views mo on relationships in general?
You know what? One of the things I
Like
think,
now, people tend to be more practical na. Like
yeah,
it's more self-directed yung approach. Na people are more career-driven in comparison to our parents'
before,
generation na they got married earlier,
yeah,
di
yeah,
ba?
yeah,
20s, settled down.
yeah.
Pero ngayon, people are more expedient na career muna and
Yun nga,
everything's
actually,
just
I was having that conversation last night with my cousins because my eldest cousin got married at 23 and had a kid at 23. And I was like, the thought of doing that at 23, I'm 33 now, is like insane. At 23, I still wanted to travel, like do my own thing. But I guess it's right. It's like as the generations change, priorities change. And then also the age, what is it called when people die at 80? Back in like 1999, the age, this lifespan was like 80, but now it's up to, back then it was 70, now it's up to 90. So it's like it changes, right? So parang people also feel that biologically they have more time. Um, I love the timeline that I did because I feel na parang at the time that I got married, had a kid, I already did everything I wanted to do. Now I want to do it all again, but with them. So I totally respect the people who got pregnant early because they have more time with their kids. Like my mom had me at 40. I'm like, my God, what were you doing before 40? Like I'm so much fun to be with. How come you only had me now? But I also respect people who want to have kids late or don't want to have kids at all because they're very career driven. Um, it's a decision that they're making, I guess, knowing that they probably have thought about the like not the consequences, the thought na parang okay after 40 or 45 I can't have kids, so it's just gonna be me and my husband or me alone. And they're okay with that, and I totally respect that. Although for my personal journey is like, I like the age of 30, getting married, having
Mm.
kid at 31, 32, then having more. I want to have 4 kids. My husband wants to have 2, so
So
our
this was something
compromises.
you always wanted, getting married at a certain age, starting a family.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's so traditional, but yeah, it
So you
was.
had those goals early on, like when you were
Yeah.
young, you dreamed of that perfect
Actually,
wedding.
no. I was not. I didn't dream of a perfect wedding when I was young. Although I used that for as an excuse to my husband when he was like, "Do we need to do a wedding?" I was like, "I've always dreamt of one." But the truth is, I didn't really, because my mom, I didn't really see her wedding. I only dreamt of it when my sister got married. I was like, "Wow, that was so fun." So I want to have my own.
Mm.
Yeah.
But when you got married, was there ever any doubt? Like, of
No.
course, at times you'd think, "Oh, my freedom or how I used to live
Oh
when
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
single."
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
now you're deciding sometimes as a couple or meron ng mga
Yeah, yeah. You have to
restrictions
consideration. You have
or
to have
priorities
consideration.
shift.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? The funny thing is, I'm the one who had to adjust a bit more because between me and my husband, I'm the one who likes to go out more. Um,
Extroverted
I'm more
ka. Yeah.
extroverted. He's more like he talks a lot, but he can be quiet also most of the time, and he likes to stay home. Whereas I like to go out with my friends. So there was that compromise, but I also reached a point where I was so tired now because I partied so much in my 20s. I was like, I'm very happy to stay home now. But yes, there's still times when I wanna. Recently, kunwari, we did our after the wedding, we went to Istanbul, and I wanted to like go drink, do some parties. I wanted to go out, but he was like, I'm so tired. I was like, am I gonna have to like do this my whole life? That was me. That was my way of thinking when I had a couple
So
of
he
drinks na.
goes with you.
Yeah, yeah, come with me. And then he'll be like, okay, let's cut off at 12. I'm like,
So
okay, let's go.
nag-adjust, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So we both have to.
com-
And
compromise.
compromise. So, but what I realized is in comparison to my previous like relationship, which was so much fun, like partying all the time. We're always like enjoying blah blah blah. Where we'd always have really high highs but really low lows. I'd much rather have a more stable life, which
Mm.
I'm having now, with which I have now with Luch, versus like up and down roller coaster. It's so tiring. You don't know if he's gonna be there the next day, that type of thing.
How many kids do you plan to have
I
pa?
I want to have 4, but
But right now you have
oh, I have one pa
one
lang.
pa.
Yeah, I have my 2-year-old son, and I want to have one soon. But yun nga, we're also like, he only wants to have 2. I'm like, no, I can't have 2. I need a tiebreaker. How many do you want?
I'm not sure yet.
Not sure.
Depends. If it
Ikaw
comes,
talaga
it
puro
comes.
depends. I want to know what would you be open to? Would you be open to 5 kids?
Maybe that's a bit much, but
I,
I'll never know. I
you'll
don't
never
wanna
know.
sound too sure.
You don't want to plan it.
Maybe a bit of planning, but
Ah,
not
okay.
fully.
Not fully. Okay.
Okay. Um,
You're so funny. And how about you? I want to know, how do you balance work and family life and the podcast?
yeah, I
I'm
just try
curious.
to squeeze in time. I wanna be efficient. So if like there are meetings or events that I don't need to go, I don't. I just
Yeah.
assess if how important this event is or
Yeah, that's true.
this
Well, you also have
meeting.
that luxury because you're the boss, diba?
Well, yeah, naman. Pero yeah,
That's true. You have so much going on. Congratulations to you as well with your son.
yeah. Thank you.
How does it feel
It's a
to be a
different
dad?
venture, different chapter in my life. I
I've
never thought I'd get married.
talaga.
Yeah,
Well, you know what? So many guys nowadays are like that. Parang
because
it's not a
generally
priority.
I'm independent in how
Yeah.
I approach. I don't want to have like a companion
Yeah.
all the time.
My husband said that to
But there are
me.
times also like you want that
But isn't
companionship.
it fun, Rin? Like,
Yeah,
parang when you experience something so fun, so it's so nice to see your wife there and your son. I have a question.
yeah,
When I had my son for the first time, parang everyone tells you you love them right away. Did you love your son right away when you saw him when he was
yeah.
born? You did?
Instantly.
Ako, me, no. Like, it was like a soft, slow burn na parang,
Mm.
sino ka? I don't. Also, kasi he doesn't look like me at all. Super
Uh,
Chinese. I didn't know
your
him.
husband's Chinese.
My husband's half Chinese, half Italian. No Filipino. He's not Filipino at
Mm.
all. So my baby looks super Chinese. And they're like, buti na lang he came out of you, or else we wouldn't know that he's yours. So it took me some time until I got to know him.
Yeah.
So I realized as a parent, like everyone really goes through their own journey. I felt pressure to love him kagad when I didn't really even know him.
Yeah, I think it's instant because you
Instant for
know
you.
he's your blood, so automatic na for me.
Yeah. Yun nga. For some people, instant kagad. They love him
But
so.
there's also that realization, oh, that you'll be living for someone else na. It's not all about you.
Yeah.
So your
Oh.
life already has, there's more responsibility na ba
Yeah.
behind it.
Instantly, you feel that
You
way.
have to ensure they grow up right, they're taken care of. So there's that added weight on your shoulder na, oh, which adds to maturity.
True.
No?
That you're pressured to do that. But are you the disciplinarian type? Or are you the spoiler
I think I'm in between.
in between?
Yeah.
And your wife
Maybe
in
mas
between?
disciplinarian siguro. Pero ako mas minsan laid back. Like I want them to explore also if
Yeah.
ever
Good luck when he
na
starts talking. Now
they
I'm like, I
because
need
they need to make their own
their own
mistakes. And they
like this.
need to fall so they learn to pick
That's so true.
learn
Like you need to
themselves
not
up.
give them everything they want. I need to tell myself that.
Yeah. Can't be too overbearing. Like you said with your mom and your sister, minsan too
I know,
overbearing.
buti na nga I'm normal eh.
But they just care naman,
Yeah,
diba?
they do. Comes from a good place
Yes.
sometimes.
But minsan may toxic elements pag,
Yeah.
diba? Nakialam lahat, ganun.
Tell me about it, my God.
Okay. Anyway, going back sa podcast, no. So you've talked about everything under the sun, more on in relation to sex.
Yeah. Most sex, relationships.
What's the most controversial topic you've delved into?
I would say the cheating was one because people always have so many opinions on it, but it actually happens so often.
It's especially now because
Yeah.
I think sa generation
Hello,
natin,
DM pa lang, slide into the DMs. It's so easy na, diba?
because I think it relates to what I talked about na people are more practical and more selfish in a way that
Yeah,
it revolves
they look
around
at their own,
themselves.
Yeah.
Plus
So,
human nature. Of course, we seek pleasure and we meet people. So it's that
yeah, that
temptation. It's
so
easy to fall.
we did a good episode on cheating, but one of the interesting ones that we had that also did really well was with Killa Kush. She's an influencer who talks to us about what women want, like parang how to go down on a girl, which is really good for guys too because I don't think guys know how. I mean, how could you learn unless a girl tells you, right? So one of the things we also learned is like it's nice to debrief with your wife or your partner after engaging so that you know, she likes it pala because it's different for every girl. And how can a guy learn? You can watch all the porn you want, but until a girl tells you like, oh, that actually feels good, you won't actually know that it's good.
So
You just
communication is
assume.
key talaga.
Communication is key. Debriefing is key. Na parang, you like that pala.
Yeah.
That, and also we had an episode with BJ Pascual about how to give blowjobs. That was a good one too.
But if I ask you if the sex is bad, how can the marriage sustain?
Yeah, I know. You know
Let's
what?
say now you're married, but let's say na yung
Eventually.
sex wala, it's so dry or
You
wala
know,
kayong spark or chemistry.
That's it sounds like a superficial like thing, but it's so important to address because touch is a big factor to a successful marriage. Like to have that like
Chemistry.
attraction to for each other. So I actually think that if you don't have that, you as a couple both actively need to find a way, whether it's talking to a therapist that can help you ignite that, or you both need to like consider an open relation. It's something you need to do something about it, unless you're both okay with it. Then, which I almost find
Yeah.
hard to believe.
For you, how many percent yung importance ng sex to make a relationship last?
I would say not even sex, but it's like it's a no, it's a what's that like affection in general. Affection, sex falls under affection. I would say like 40 to 50%. It's a big chunk for me. For me, but for some people it might not be.
For you, 50.
Yeah, because that's what sets them apart from my friends. Otherwise, they would just be my friend, right?
Mm.
Yeah. For you, what do you think?
I think there's that slippery slope when it can get boring, especially if you've been together.
Yeah, 100.
For a
You
long
need to
time.
find other things to do.
So you need to add that spark.
Kaya nga jelly time eh. Jelly time is just one. There's so many other things like so many different stuff. I
Mm.
mean, I don't think I can ever get to the point of a threesome, but some people do.
You're
And
open. You're not
no, no, no,
open.
I can't. I'm not there. Maybe in 10 years you
So
can
you
ask
still
me.
believe in the exclusivity of the
Yeah.
relationship, of course. That needs to be preserved.
Well, I'm more like I actually am totally fine with others who do it. I'm just not there mentally. I'm not mature enough to accept another girl
So there are
seeing mine.
married couples who
Oh yeah,
engage
yeah,
in
yeah,
threesomes.
yeah, yeah. I know a
More
lot.
on
I know a couple.
a female partner or a male or
It's
mix.
actually a mix. Like
Mix.
more usually it's an extra girl because it's not easy for the guy to be like another guy. But
Yeah, that's what
and the
I was
idea
thinking.
always mainly comes from the guy and the girl kind of accepts it. But it's actually quite common, and especially with like couples that are half foreign, ganun, they're more open minded to these things. And same sex couples, they're also in a lot of them are open relationships. The difference between an open relationship and swinging is in an open relationship is the partners go home together, but they can go in different. They can sleep with other people, but swinging is like you're together while doing it. So I'm not there yet, but I totally respect people who want to do it to spice things up for their
Mm.
marriage.
What about if you were single? Would you be open to
To
that?
doing, I'm not there
Or
yet.
yung mga orgies ganun?
I'm conscious kasi I'm conscious about those things. But I'm very open and I want to hear about it. I love to hear about people's experience, but I don't know if I can participate. I'm scared of STIs, STDs.
Uh,
So that's a big thing for me too.
what about watching porn? If your husband watches porn, do you consider that
That's a
cheating?
no. You know what? When we first started dating, I was like trying to be cool about it. Like, no, it's okay, go watch porn. And then like we were like, wait, let's try watching together. And I was so uncomfortable that I had to stop it. So I'm still in that phase where we're
So you're
trying.
still somewhat
I
conservative,
am
even if you
actually.
have a sex
Yeah,
themed
yeah, yeah, yeah,
podcast.
yeah. I can talk about it easily, but when it comes to my own private life, it's not that easy for me.
Okay.
It's a challenge.
Because I thought I had this perception that you were very
Yeah, I know
open.
people normally do. But and even my husband, he's like, "You have a podcast, you can." I'm like, "I know, but I'm getting there." The podcast is my platform to get where I want to be, where I'm very comfortable about these things.
Mm, okay. How important for you is yung oral
Oh,
aspect,
super, super
like
important.
going down on you, ganun.
Yeah, I think it's really important because it like kind of is it's your foreplay,
Foreplay,
right?
foreplay.
It gets you. But sometimes when you're just like trying to get to the quickie, especially when you're married, sometimes like you just want to do it like that. It's not as like okay lang lube helps a lot or jelly time helps a lot. But when you're like in the mood to romance each other, I think that's
Mm.
an really fun aspect of things.
But before you engage in sex, like even when you were single, is it with someone you're intimate with, or can you just do it
Oh
with
my god.
someone you're attracted to? Like
I'm super bad,
there's
but
someone you find hot,
yeah,
then
yeah,
you
yeah.
just think, oh, I wish
I
he would
I
just
did have a hookup
take me
phase.
off, yung hook up.
I was. My sister wasn't, but I was. I think we had very different. Although we were brought up the same, I think I was like more exposed to like drinking, like drugs. I was exposed to drugs when I was young, and that made me quite open in a bad sense because I was like I didn't
But I
view
think
sex
you
as an.
also had your
But I also
phase
learned a lot from it.
of
So
exploring,
I wouldn't have changed any other. But yes, I did have my hookup phases.
like one night stand, like dun sa
I
Bora or
did,
Siargao. I can
yeah.
just imagine. Yung
Yeah. Have
mga
you?
ganon.
Did you have that phase?
Yeah, I would
Oh
say.
my
But I'm
God,
more
Mike, I
low.
can't picture you.
But I'm just
Low-key
low
din
key.
naman ako. I'm not naman telling
No, I
everyone
mean
I'm
I'm
low.
just there, low key, tahimik lang.
Pero lasing na pala. Tapos, it's so bad. And when I remember it now, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did
Yeah,
that.
because I was curious rin on girls' perspective on that. Because guys, we tend to be more visual. So of course, if there's someone you find attractive, you just wanna
Yeah.
you
Well,
could
no, girls
engage.
also. Like,
Because I heard like girls na mas ano, it's more of a spiritual, intimate thing
I, for,
before they engage into it. But for guys, it's more of a physical. You need that high
yeah, yeah,
thing,
yeah. I mean, for guys, biologically, they need it. Like,
yeah,
like
to get off.
they need to actually like ejaculate. But there are a lot of girls like my group of friends. They're not as reserved. they're very like, oh my god, you saw it, let's go for it. I think it's also the upbringing and the people that's around you, because there are also people in my high school that were conservative. I think it's just like my group of friends were a lot more open.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
when you have a girl, you know to avoid making her hang out with people like me. Just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but it's good. At least they're aware and not easily like, I know, fooled,
Yeah.
diba? Yeah.
But when you're drinking, diba, lowered inhibitions. But there's
Normally
a
it
part
happens
of
then.
you, even if you weren't drunk, you'd also go for it. Would the
I would have
alcohol
a
just
harder time striking up a conversation. Like
must
how,
lose ka
yeah,
if
must lose. Yun na.
if
I
you're
introduced
drunk?
myself to Luch in a yacht cruise because I was drunk. If I was not drunk, I would not have done that.
So
So
alcohol is like that
yes,
social lubricant
yeah, yeah.
also. So it's still a
Yes, it's
lubricant.
a jolly time for me too.
Okay. So it's
Ay,
good we're
nako.
talking about this
Yeah, it's
openly.
interesting.
Okay.
So funny.
But just out of curiosity, do you watch porn
Yeah, I do.
until now?
Yeah, but I do it by
And
myself without
and
him.
your
And
husband
and
has
I
no
like
issues with
I
it.
like no, he doesn't care. He's super like mature like that. That's why I'm trying to get there. But I like the type of porn that is more like storytelling than like hardcore like that. I like the storytelling of like, oh, she works with him in the office and after hours, like those type of things.
Mm.
That's more exciting for me. But yeah, for sure. Even watching movies that have kind of soft porn, it's like, oh my god, exciting.
Yung mga 50 Shades, ganun.
I mean, I didn't even get turned on with 50 Shades because it's like you're expected to turn on. I like things where it's like, oh my god, I didn't expect that I was gonna get turned on by this, and that's what exciting. I feel like 50 Shades is like made me like it made it. I was expected. Yun nga. I don't like that.
Okay. Maybe on
Yes.
a more sensitive topic. What about masturbation?
No, no worries. These are the things I talk about. I think it's really healthy. Um, as a woman, my
So
hormones
now
change.
that you're a married woman
Yeah, I
and
still
you're
totally believe in it because sometimes you don't want to have sex to come. I think it's totally healthy to do it, and that's why I still use my toys. I have all my toys in my bedside table because yeah, sometimes you're not on the same level. Like he wants to do it, and I'm so tamad, or I want to do it, and he's not.
di ma-ego blow husband mo that, oh, you're playing with toys.
No,
What about
no,
me?
I know, right? It's like a very real problem. But then one of the things he understood being that I work for Jolly Time is you have to understand like women, oh, it's a different type of pleasure to do it by yourself. You also get to understand your body more. Like I never understood my body more than when I started using toys. So it's a whole process in by yourself that you learn. And I totally am for masturbation for both men and women. It's a private
Mm,
act. You can do it by yourself, or you can have your partner help you do it.
mm. You need porn for that, or
Sometimes, I mean, it's more fun, diba?
to
But when you're
add to
like
that.
rushing, you don't have time to like go on incognito, blah blah blah.
Mm, okay. Ideally, how long should sex last?
Oh, it's so different, like so different all the time. Like, and maybe there are times we could do 5 minutes. There are times we'll do like 15, 20.
5 is considered quickie, diba?
5 is considered quick na. But like 10 to 15 is tiring kaya. It's tiring.
Mm.
Especially it depends if you're the one on top, one, they're gonna.
So you also explore different positions, and of
Yeah,
course.
I think that's a good way to keep your like marriage like spice things up.
So you go beyond the conventional. Siyempre,
Yeah, although I'm
missionary.
super vanilla, I do just love missionary. But just to try other stuff and then using a toy together while doing it, that's another one I recommend. It's a lot of couples who have bought Jolly Time have told us it's really changed their sex life.
Mm,
And like couples who have been together for so long, yun nga, it gets boring after some time. And so that's what causes some guys to look another way.
mm.
So like if the girl or the guy actively thinks of ways to spice it up, then it really, really helps.
Meron din, di ba? Pegging or
Yes, that's
it's the
another
guy.
thing.
It's the guy who's in
Yeah.
that position.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Then
yeah.
the girl wears a strap on.
Yes, pegging's another thing. Oh my god, I had a friend recently who was hooking up with this guy, and in Siargao, he asked her like, "Are you into pegging?" And she's like, "No,
You haven't done
no,"
pegging.
because some girls find that if a guy likes it, then they think that they're gay. But something that's really interesting is like doesn't mean that you have something up your butt that means you're gay. Because for a guy, the actually most pleasurable spot
G spot
is
sa
inside their
guy
butt.
is yung prostate.
Yeah, and the prostate is
That
finger deep in the butt. So guys, that's another thing. It's very hard to grasp because guys are like, no way. My husband's like, no way, no way. But actually, if we can understand that that's actually the most pleasurable spot for guys,
mm.
that's totally fine. Parang ayaw mo, you're like,
With
but
pegging,
again,
I don't know. It's
we learn
still
these things. I know
that's
it's
still
it's
different
a far off,
territory.
yeah, different territory, but interesting to know.
Okay, now
Yeah.
I'm asking you all these sexual questions.
I love that you know it. My gosh. Everyone's like, my God, you're introverted, parang dami palang alam.
Yeah. Okay. But regarding like premature ejaculation, what are your ano? 'Di ba minsan the girls into it then oh he comes
Yeah, no,
early.
I actually think a lot of pregnancies happen through premature ejaculation because it's so common.
But is
Um,
it really a big deal kasi may round 2 naman or 'di ba?
I know. Well, what do you mean in terms of
I
having
mean
sex?
like if the round 1 ends early, you can always like wait a few minutes for the second
Well, it's not that
longer round.
easy for guys to do all the time.
Yeah, it takes a
Diba? It
while.
takes
Because
a
I think for
while.
guys, you need to recharge.
Recharge. Whereas
That's,
with a girl, it's like you can.
diba, multiple
Yeah.
orgasms that
Well,
what girls
pre
are
cum
capable
just
of.
really matters if you're trying hard not to get pregnant and you're not using a condom.
Mm.
But if you're trying to get pregnant or you don't mind getting pregnant, then that's fine. But it's something that people should be aware of because you really can get pregnant and just one piece of one
Mm-mm.
sperm
Yeah.
comes out, goes to your egg, you're
Even
done.
with a condom, there's still a slight chance,
There's
diba?
well,
Like a
you,
small
with a
chance.
condom, it's only a 98% chance that you'll get pregnant. Not that you that 98% chance of preventing pregnancies
So
when you wear a
2%
condom.
chance
There's
of.
still a 2% chance as long as you wear the condom properly.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
What about regarding sexual chemistry?
I think it's so
Because I
necessary.
think with some people they can be attractive, but you don't have that.
You'll know, diba? There's just that
There's
spark.
no
But
pheromones or those hormones
yeah,
don't rush.
it doesn't happen automatically. But I do think it's something that can be worked on. Because so many times people think like guys, especially when they watch porn, it needs to be like this rough. But actually, it's most pleasurable when you do it together in unison, and that doesn't happen instantly. It's very rare that happens in a hookup like kaagad. You actually work on it together as you learn more and more about like, oh, you like this pala. And then you all of a sudden can like for me, when you finish at the same time is the most exciting. Like it feels
Uh,
the best.
together
Yeah.
pag yung
It's like blissful, right? And that doesn't happen all the time until you like do it more often. You guys it's not practice, quote unquote. But I do think sexual chemistry is rare that it happens instantly. It's something you can work on, and I think it's very necessary for a marriage or a relationship to
mm.
flourish.
But do you always get an orgasm or there you hear about faking
I
orgasms, diba?
know.
So some fake it not to hurt their partners,
Yeah, of
ganun.
course. I mean, admittedly, before with my ex partner, I did, but I'm so thankful with my husband. No, I don't
Yeah.
have to. In fact, we always do it at TMI,
Yeah.
same time, which is why I'm like, I really believe that you need to find that chemistry because it didn't happen right away. You just work
Mm,
on it.
can work on it. What about your thoughts on like mga prostitution, gigolos? Have you ever ano,
Have I ever done it?
with like a
Well,
gigolo?
well, you know what? They have those yoni massages that we were talking about in Bali, like where they massage your vagina and all. But
You've experienced that.
no, I haven't. I just heard someone who's done it, and she did it with her husband, and it really was a mental struggle for her. Kasi parang you want to be cool with it, you want to explore, but it's also like it goes against everything you're brought up. So it's a really tough thing to do. I personally, I think like the whole prostitution, male strippers are fun for like bachelor parties and all of that, and I think that for some men they really need it because I mean, most men actually biologically they need, but I don't condone it. I don't. I'm not like you should go do it. I just rather like parang if you want to go have fun, go get a lap dance. get get a lap dance, get motorboated, but I don't really push for like sex with prostitutes only because STDs are so
Mm-mm.
so rampant. And parang the lives that these prostitutes, you're encouraging prostitutes to give up their life to do these things, and I just feel like it's they lose their dignity when they do it. You know, I mean, some of them love what they're doing. Escort is fine. Um, I kind of just want to respect what everyone's choices are. It's a safe
Mm.
answer. Yeah.
With your experiences, you mentioned you've done one night stands when you were younger. Do you regret like after,
Yeah, I do.
like, oh, I sold myself so
Yeah, I do.
cheap with this random guy?
Especially like when it's a drunken one night stand. I
Like
like
you feel you
I'm
lost your
like, oh,
dignity
yeah,
a bit.
yeah, yeah. I call my sister and tell her like, you know what I did, and she's like, oh my god, like. But then I love her because she'll never make me feel bad about it, other than when she's making fun of me. And when you make fun of me, you kind of make light of it. But in my heart, I'm like, I'm so disgusted with myself, like that type of thing.
I think it's part of the journey naman.
It is, it is, it is.
Yeah. Okay. What about performance or like the size of the guy's
Penis,
penis?
that's
Ganun.
for me. I
That's
actually
usually
don't.
something that comes up. Diba
A
sa
lot, a lot.
stereotype
Yeah.
in movies like,
Or even
oh,
between
like,
girls, they're always like, "What's the size?"
yeah,
I think I could say for a lot of girls that I know, they don't want a big penis. Like
the really massive ones.
typical Filipino size should be fine as long as they know how to please. And when I say they know how to please, it's like you know where is the clitoris, so that some people can only orgasm through the clitoris being stimulated, like moving. Some people need penetration. Some people need both. So as a partner, if you want to perform well, you should find out if your girlfriend or your wife orgasms through through the clitoral through clitoral penetration, clitoral or
Stimulation.
stimulation or penetration. So at least you're giving them what they want. You don't just assume. And I'm telling you, it changes everything when you know. So I do think you don't need a big penis. You just need to be be mature enough to be like, is this what makes you feel good?
Mm.
So you double down on that. Diba?
Yeah, because I think it's the media that adds to
Yeah,
that
yeah.
hype. Like,
I mean, it's just fun to
like
be
of
like,
course in porn, it's usually
yeah,
big,
because it's a visual thing.
big dicks, ganun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
exactly. It's all
all
for
right.
porn. Yeah,
It's all for the visuals.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay,
Porn
that's
really screws up people's mentality and sex. But I guess there's also an upside where it gives you something to fantasize about. Like, you know, it's exciting too.
okay. So for you, size doesn't
No,
matter
no,
or
it doesn't
matters
matter.
a bit, or
I mean, it does.
because
It
there can be some that's too small
Yeah.
also.
I mean, I also I know like I've experienced very small ones, and it's like, oh my gosh. But I do think that can be made compensated for
Other
hourly
things.
toys. It's not my end all be all. Yeah.
Okay, interesting insights.
Yeah.
Sige, what
Diba?
else?
I love it.
But okay, delving into another topic na. How's motherhood?
Oh my god.
How's being a
I'm just
mom?
kidding. Um,
From sex to
from sex.
motherhood.
Syempre, that's the
Well,
result,
it is
diba? It's
related.
the
It's
result.
still intertwined.
I love it. In fact, like the other day, my son was sleeping in between me and Luch, my husband. And parang for some reason, I just got emotional. I was looking at him. I was thinking, these are the best times of my life because my son's here with me. My mom's healthy. My yaya's healthy. Paul's healthy. All the people I love are alive and healthy. And I was just thinking, like, I don't want this to go away. And I started to like tear, thinking, like, I really need to treasure this moment in my life that everything's good.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, as a mom, everything's been great. Here and there adjustments of like sleep and stuff, but thankfully I have some help to help me.
But you're
And
very hands-on with.
I mean, I try to be as
What
much as
about
I can.
breastfeeding?
I breastfed for like a year and 2 months, but then I wanted to drink already, and the girl helping me, my yaya, helping me would be like, umiinom ka na naman whenever I'm gonna breastfeed him. So I'm like, okay na nga, I'll stop na lang breastfeeding. So I stopped because I wanted to have my wine and stuff, like, you know,
How
personal.
often do you drink? You still get wasted?
No,
Ganun.
I mean I can't because
Socially lang.
weirdly enough, 4 years ago, I developed this thing where if I drink too much, eye gets inflamed. I think it's my body telling me like stop.
Yeah,
So
listen to your
maybe I'll drink
body.
once every 2 weeks. I drank twice this weekend though, but before that, for the past year, like once every 2 weeks, once a week.
Mm. What about your honeymoon? You've already traveled
Well,
or
it was a buddy moon because we were with my whole family, so I'm
so sa
still saving
Italy
that.
lang.
Yeah, we went to Sicily, which is insane. You have to go. Bring your wife. I'm telling you, the food
Yeah,
was
I
so
always
good.
wanted to go there because
Sicily, you
of the
have to.
movie The Godfather, diba?
Oh my god,
It's
it's
one of my
so
favorite
good. Chef
movies.
and the Godfather is so good.
I love
And
that scene
Sicily is
when
in where the mafia started,
yeah,
diba?
that always interested me to
You
go
should
to
go. It's
to
insane.
that town, diba? There was that scene with Al Pacino
Yeah.
where
Oh my god, you're
then
gonna love it.
then he found an Italian wife
I
there,
need to
diba?
watch it again just to remember. Yeah,
Okay.
the honeymoon was fun, but it's not yet done.
What about other plans aside from, of course, Jelly Time, podcasting? Uh, you ever wanna get into acting
Oh my
more,
gosh, no, no,
showbiz,
no,
diba?
no. I mean, I love it that my family's in it, and I like love to be there on the side, getting a few extra followers because I'm related to them. But right,
Yeah.
people follow me. I'm like by default, but I really enjoy private life. I love working on a computer. I love doing things behind the scenes, but I also love posting about things. It's just I'd rather leave that to my sister and my mom. They have the personality for it. I don't.
Mhm.
But for me right now, I really just my goal right now is to get Jelly Time to where I want it to be. But more than that is to get sex ed in our Philippine curriculum. That's what I'm working on. We're trying to build an age appropriate curriculum that we can pitch
Mm.
to the government.
Yeah, going back to sex now, I remembered something. What do you think of promiscuity? Like, diba, sex somewhat has cheapened, relationships are more, mas expedient na
Yeah.
ng mga tao.
You mean in
That,
terms of doing it with other people?
I mean, in terms of values, like, sex is easier now. Like, people just do it casually,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which could be fine, but which can also be detrimental to,
Yeah.
like,
I think
making babies na hindi kasal, then
yeah.
of course kids growing up without a dad, yung
Yeah,
mga
yeah,
ganon
yeah, yeah,
na
yeah. I
problems.
think you know what, when it comes to like sex being so easy because it's I guess grinders, apps like
Yeah,
that
yung
make
mga
it so
Tinder, di
easy.
ba? Bumble.
I'm actually all for it. The only thing is I just want to make sure everyone knows the importance of protection because
Yeah,
like
yung mga
some
HIV,
yeah, some people are
gonorrhea.
very happy being single, sleeping around with other people, and then I'm like, I get it, that's fun. You like to live an
Safe lang.
independent life. You just like the pleasure of having sex. But it just takes one encounter of like an open wound for you to contract HIV. And I recently saw a post that the HIV there are 51 HIV cases contracted every day now, and it's the highest disease in the Philippines. And I'm like, that's crazy. You can avoid all of that. Just wear condoms or take PrEP, the pill. But when in terms of promiscuity, it's not that it doesn't bother me so much. I actually I like people who are sexual. I think it's an added excitement element. Just stay protected and in the proper context, right? Like if you're married, don't be doing that. If you're single, like looking open, yeah, that's totally fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good insights.
I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, but what's your general philosophy in life, or what's your general outlook?
Um, Me, I always just feel like as a person when I said a people pleaser earlier, like I always want to make sure that I'm happy, and in doing so make other people happy. Like if all my friends that know me know that I'm happiest when everyone's happy, as long as it's not like me having to give up something. I always feel like I really believe in karmic energy. If you give out good energy, you always get back good energy. If you share with people the good fortune that you have, it'll always come back to you. And my husband has told me like I've never met anyone who's had that revolving energy as much as you. Like he's like you give too much to people on the street, but I'm like so much always comes back, and then it's like sometimes it just falls in my lap, and like I'm so lucky. But I do think it's because I always want to give everyone like if I had like one more thing like $100 left in my wallet, I'm happy to share it with someone who's hungry. So I do think helping others out is the best way to get.
So impacting other people's
Yeah, yeah,
lives
yeah. I
in
really believe in that,
or
100%.
giving back to the community in
Yeah,
some way.
in some way, like, and just like seeing that authentic smile of them being happy because of something you've done, it feels so good. But without ever compromising your own, diba?
Yeah.
Sometimes you give too much. There's such thing as selfless to a fault, and then you don't want to be that.
Yeah, you still have to be responsible or
Yeah.
set certain
and
limits.
and I also truly believe in, like, of course I believe in religion, all of these things, but I always believe in not hurting anyone in anything that you do. Like, if you want to achieve something, don't bring other people down to achieve it, because yun nga, I always want to consider other people in the things that you do.
Yeah, because presently a lot of backstabbing does go on, or
Yeah,
people can
tsaka
be cutthroat, especially
sobra
in such a
nowadays.
fast-paced world. It's
I
every man for
know, I
himself
know,
that
I
they
know.
would, of course, do some deceptive
Yeah,
or inhumane acts
even with
to.
businesses, diba?
Yeah, it can be
So
very
much
it can
competition.
be vicious.
Yeah.
Ano,
I just want to be able to sleep at night knowing I always choose to do good
do
over,
the
like,
right thing. No?
yeah, right.
Okay. But what are your religious or spiritual views?
I'm Catholic, but I wouldn't say I'm a very, like, I don't practice it all the time. Like, I don't go to church every Sunday, but I pray every night. I pray with my son every night. And I always teach him, like, what my values are is respect, treating people fairly, whether you have, like, someone in the street or like the richest person I know, I treat them equally for me. And I feel like one of the things I always also learn a lot from is speaking to people from all walks of life. You learn so much from different perspectives, and it helps form yours,
Yeah.
and you learn more who you are. So I would say I'm more spiritual than I am religious. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm
Are you
more
the same?
spiritual.
Yeah, yeah. Because I used to be like
But
so
how would you
tamad.
define God?
God, I believe in God. I do believe in a higher being. I think it helps me, especially in a time when, like, you don't know what else to do other than pray. It gives me that peace. Why I say I'm not religious is because I don't go to mass on Sundays. That's my biggest measurement. But
So
I
you
believe
don't
in.
subscribe to dogma or
I don't, but I believe in prayer a lot.
yeah,
I believe in
like what
prayer,
goes around comes around, and somehow there's some being orchestrating this.
orchestrating. I do believe in that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do believe in that.
like there's a purpose why
Yeah,
this happened
I believe
and
everything has a purpose,
consequences.
and God has a,
And it,
for us. And I think it's more than anything for me. The reason I believe in it because it gives me mental strength. Because if you had nothing to, like, nothing higher up there to, like, kind of count on, you're like, then who else?
you need that solid foundation.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree.
Okay.
We've talked about everything. I
Yeah.
love it.
What else are you looking forward to? We've covered on motherhood, family,
What else, Baba?
career wise.
Career wise, you know what? I just want to be able to achieve what my goal with Jolly Time, which nga is to grow it to where I want it to be. Plus,
Do you have a store for that?
no, we're doing it mainly online, but we're all in Watson. We're in Watsons, so it's exclusively in Watsons
You
now. And
came up with that name, Jelly Time.
Jolly Time, yeah, with my cousin, because we wanted it to come to be like a name that was like easy, like it's Jolly Time. Literal, it's Jolly Time now. It's not so sexual, hindi so exaggerate, but
Yeah.
it's too hypersexual. I don't want to feel that way, diba?
Okay. Maybe delving a bit on your childhood. What was your childhood like? Of course, you have a famous mother, famous sister in
Yeah.
the showbiz world, and it can be superficial or in a
Yeah, yeah,
way
yeah, of
that
course.
you meet a lot of high profile people, and it's hard to find that authenticity because
Oh yeah,
or there
100%.
are people out to use you or just
Yeah. Well, I
have
mean,
their own agenda, so it's hard to distinguish who to trust, and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure there are people who've stabbed you in the back at times maybe before
You know what? It's actually not as crazy as other people
because
think. But my sister wasn't famous when I was growing up, so she was like me.
Hmm.
We were always being asked, like, "How does it feel like with your mom as Miss Universe?" But I was like, I don't really know any differently, but I just know, like, in, like, show and tell. They'd ask us to bring my mom's crown. So we'd bring my mom's crown. And people like would be fawn over it. So I was like, oh, I guess this is a cool thing. But I really like some perks like we get to skip some lines in
Oh yeah,
Enchanted Kingdom,
of
or
course,
like
that comes with
restaurants
it.
give us free dishes. I really enjoy that. But I think it's what's really nice is like when people see that we're actually just really normal people, and then especially when I chat with them for long, they're like, "Oh my God, hindi ka pala mataray." I'm like, "No, why do you need to be mataray?" But there are still also people who are like that. So it's a cool perspective of mine to be in the back, kind of seeing things. And that's one of the things I told my sister. Like when she became famous, I'm like, that doesn't make you any more important than who you were. And I think it's good to have that reality check too, because sometimes for example, with my mom, her whole life, people have fawned over her. So she doesn't know
Yeah,
any
she's
differently.
like a national figure, right?
She's like an
Because
icon for a lot of people. And so
icon.
I can't blame her if for her looks are very important. So I was always chubby growing up. So she'd always like tell me like, you need to lose weight. And that played a big role in like my insecurities about looks. But then as I got older, I told her like, I don't want looks to determine how I feel about my self-worth. And over time, I was able to overcome that and explain to her like, that's not what I use to measure myself. Although I do believe in being healthy and fit. That's one of the things she did teach me, like fitness and health.
Yeah, because I think that's a problem lately that people are somehow normalizing things that aren't normal.
Yeah, like
like there are fat people saying it's okay to be fat, and
yeah,
they shouldn't be offended.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
like
think
that fat
you
shaming
should draw
term.
that line
Yeah, yeah.
somehow with.
There is that term, and I recently said that to my husband, like especially with kids, I don't like people making any comments about appearance of kids. But if it's like they're overly eating candy that's like 200 grams of sugar, it's like that's enough. That's not healthy from a health perspective. I don't want to do it from a looks perspective because I don't want to shape that, especially with social media na nga already making kids anxious. You don't want to add to that.
Yeah, because lately with this generation, people have become like tolerant, and it's become a whiny generation that
Yeah.
people want to get their way. Like, diba, like WNBA, there are some people who want both sexes to be in the same
Yeah.
sport, diba?
So there's a lot, even with the Miss Universe,
Like
right?
things
The
are
trans
getting
thing. Yeah.
abnormal, things are getting normalized.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
think we need
it
to draw
depends what
that line.
generation. Like it feels weird for the boomers because that wasn't it. The millennials are kind of forced to kind of be in the middle, whereas Gen Zs are more fluid. So they're like, this should be normal. It's
Yeah.
just like people forcing each other's values and
Yeah.
opinions on each other.
Easily triggered na rin
Yeah,
mga tao.
exactly.
Very sensitive. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, do you have other questions, pa?
I think we did cover a lot
It's
of
a
ground
lot.
today. Yeah.
Thank
So,
you
yeah.
so much, Mike, for having me here. I'm excited to watch the podcast. Where can people watch it? Where can I watch it?
Well, it's on YouTube, Facebook, and
Okay,
Spotify.
I'm gonna
But
wait
it's a
for
low
you.
key one, not like yours.
No,
That's
I like
really
low
out
key because
there.
those are the podcasts that really delve deep into things.
Yeah, and thank you for your insights also
Of
today.
course. Thank
It
you
was
so
a
much.
pleasure to have you on, and hope
Yay!
to see
Thanks,
you more
Mike.
often.
Of
Hopefully,
course,
we'll
when you're
see.
here next, come over. Let's have dinner.
Yeah,
We'll
of
have wine and
course.
we'll talk about in front of our spouses. They'll be like, "Ang klaseng mga convo to."
Yeah.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.